I think a lot of us, especially as young adults, are trying to kind of figure out what faith looks like in real life. How do we balance prayer, purpose, and dating? And how does that conversation fit in the grand scheme of this whole conversation of dating? Hey guys, my name is Anthony. I'm here with Joshi and David Herring, back for another episode of It's the Good Life, your practical guide to adulting. So excited to be diving into another episode today. This is going to be episode 18, as we're heading off to the end here. This is going to be pretty much the middle of our relationship series, which is really exciting because we have a lot in store, but today we're going to be focusing pretty much on faith and how that relates to our relationships in general. Josh, do you have kind of a way, like a kind of angle, like a question that you are starting with here?
Well, I think it's important to sort of preface why we're talking about God, and I think it's so fitting that we're talking about God in the middle of the series, because I know in the past 2 episodes we've talked about singleness, we've talked about concepts of dating, we've talked about the people in our lives while we're dating, if that's something that you're going to be doing. And I think it's just so fitting to talk about God, just because I think for me personally, that's like the most essential part of it all. That we can't move forward or backwards in dating, forwards or backwards in this conversation without talking about God. Especially just in the next 2 episodes where we get really into sort of the meat of dating and even beyond that of marriage.
Meatballs and spaghetti.
Yeah, so for real. So just kind of to prompt. Sort of, we've talked about our faith before, and we've talked about that. But when it comes to just thinking about our relationship with God and relationship with dating, for you guys, like how important is that? Is that the most essential part? Is that maybe not as essential? Is that something that you want to be more essential? You know,
I think
as an opener.
As an opener, great opener. The question.
Thanks, David.
Of course, I'm validating.
Great question. Great question.
The first thing that pops up into my head is the thought of when people ask you that question, they're like, oh yeah, when you look at dating with another person, it's like, what qualities do you want? And then I think sometimes people generally skip over because there's this one thought that it should be established that you should have a relationship with God, at least when I'm looking at the qualities of someone that I hope to have a relationship with God. But I think it's super critical that having a relationship with Christ is something that is important to the individual that I would potentially be dating.
Well, I guess more so it's like, so it sounds like for you, it's actually the quality of a person that you're looking for, is that they have a relationship with God. Like that is a part of their life that you're looking for when you're dating. Like if you're on a date with someone, you're like, oh, are you spiritual? I have a relationship with God. You're like, oh, that's a green flag.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
What about you? Do you resonate with that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you brought up this idea, which I don't think we talked about like relationship or qualities in a significant others that you're looking for. And I feel like it does tie very closely with the ideas that we see biblically, because I think as Christians we draw the value and we draw traits and personalities that we look for in our significant other from the Bible. And so it's things like love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Like, do they have those things? And I think we often ask ourselves, at least I do, even in relationships outside of romantic ones, like, does this friend exhibit those qualities? And is this someone that is worth sticking around? You know? How is it for you, Josh? Like, how do you go about deciding that?
I think that for me, and this might be an unpopular, I want to say it's an unpopular opinion, but for me, I feel like it's the most important thing is that my relationship with God is priority, right?
Priority in a sense that it prioritizes over the relationship with the significant
everything.
other? Okay.
Yeah, and what I mean by that is, like, if my relationship with my partner is taking me away from my relationship with God, then it's not meant to happen.
Wow.
If my relationship with the other person should amplify my relationship with God, not take away from it.
That's great.
And I think that I say it's an unpopular opinion because that implies that the relationship isn't as important as my relationship with God, and that's true. And I stand by that.
That is the hard truth.
It's the hard
Yeah,
truth.
that a lot of people don't like want to hear.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
to be honest though, really think about it, right? If your faith is the most important thing for you, then your relationship with God is the most important. And so for me, it's like that relationship is the most important. Those crows are really going.
It's cool. Do what they do.
And so I think the reason that I say this and I ask this is because we as people are finite, right? We can't be everything for everyone, especially our significant other. But the great thing about God is that He is enough. He's more than enough. And so the importance about our fostering our relationship with God as sort of the center of our relationship is that God will fill the gaps, right? And so just kind of thinking about sort of the importance of God in our relationships, what I think when it comes to looking at our relationships in the dating sense and the romantic sense and the friend sense, right? I think in the most ideal world, especially from a Christian standpoint, it should be a reflection of our relationship with God, right? So I think that kind of leads into the conversation of what does a real relationship with God look like, you know? So like for me, I'll start off with vulnerability, being real, right? God knows us more than we know ourselves.
That's right.
So what do we have to focus on being real with Him? Anthony, you and I talked about this in one of our bonus episodes, which may not be released relative to when this is released. But one of the things we talked about was journaling.
Yes.
And one of the practices that I've been really, sorry, I'm a little sick, has been really eager in pursuing is vulnerability in my journaling. And what that looks like is not to try to make my journaling sound presentable, but to just come at it fully and completely and transparently. And that's how I pray. It's like, God, here's my messy self.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that that's a relationship quality that we have with God, and I think that's a great relationship quality to have in a romantic sense.
It's interesting that you still, like, even in the journaling process, you're still filtering, like, because no one, I mean, I don't think anyone's going in your journal and reading it, but then it's like, why do you still filter out what you're saying when you're the only, when it's just you that's seeing what you're writing, you know? Like, is it the habitual sense of, like, being afraid of putting everything on paper and, like, opening up on yourself, or, like, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right on the nail. I think there's a honesty and vulnerability with myself that sometimes, even in the journaling realm, I don't feel comfortable getting into. Like sometimes, like it's too uncomfortable to be honest with myself, even on paper.
Ooh, okay.
Wow.
You know, and so it's like I think that the practice of being vulnerable like starts privately. You know, and then it moves on to God, and then it moves on to others.
That's actually really good, because I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this too, David, because I feel like so oftentimes we struggle. I struggle with being vulnerable around others, but then I wonder if that's just an extension of me struggling to be vulnerable with myself.
Wow.
Because it's like, how do I open up about my own feelings, my own thoughts to someone else when I haven't even processed and went through that kind of idea and processing on my own first, you know?
Yeah, you can't give what you don't have.
You can't give what you don't have. Yeah, you've mentioned that before.
Yeah, I think I'm challenged what you're saying, Josh, because and in a great way, the idea of, you're talking about vulnerability being written down on a page. Wait, so were you saying exactly that it's okay to like write down the vulnerabilities on the page, or was it like something that you're like trying to avoid?
I think that was what the sort of the barrier that I ran into was like, why do I feel like I haven't been able to say what I really need to say on paper, you know? And I realized that it was because I was flowering up my language to sound appealing to myself, like as if I was sort of lying and being not fully transparent with myself about how I was feeling, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, who are you trying to impress?
Yeah, exactly. No, you're totally right. It's like who was I trying to impress? Hold on, I think my mic is a little off. But I think that in a nutshell, like I was trying to impress myself. Like, oh, I have it all together, my life sounds good. But and the reality was like that's not that's not how reality is.
Right.
I'm gonna just really fix this.
No
real quick. You guys
worries.
keep talking.
You're so good.
Did it fall off? Did it fall off?
My magnet. Yeah.
Oh shit. Okay. It's cool.
We're chilling.
It's okay. We'll find
Yeah.
it.
I'm good though.
You know, something interesting I think about too is that idea of like when we're looking to love someone else in the confines of like a significant other. This idea of like, it's so interesting, this like friends to lovers versus enemies to lover
Yeah.
situation comes about, right? Because I'm thinking about, because the whole idea of like friends to lover is like you're friends first and you guys grow really closely, and then out of that friendship you guys like fall in love, right? But then the enemies to lover situation is like you guys like, I don't know, start off on a bad foot, and then you guys are angry at each other, but in like navigating those valleys in life, those difficulties, you like somehow fall in love in that too.
Yeah.
And like there's something romantic about going through the trials and the tribulations with somebody, and then out at the end of it, you see it like in every single movie. It's like, you know, Indiana Jones, he's like saves the girl or like whatever it is, and at the end of it, it's like, okay, like we've gone through all this stuff, like, you know, like getting to that point. But I guess my point here is I think it's interesting the way like God places different people in our life as it relates to significant others, because sometimes like there's people that we least expect to be, you know, the one, and then they end up, you hear stories about people getting together and, you know, they're like, we didn't ever really started on the right foot, or you know, just random things like that.
Yeah.
But anyways, to bring it back, I think the audio is good now.
Yeah, the audio's good now.
Great.
Yeah, my
Nice.
mic is just like, I'm gonna shut off. I don't know
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that, but again, I think kind of one of the main themes that I think it's really good to hone in on is that how our relationship should reflect our relationship with the Lord, right? And like that's a lot of how God works too, right? Is like God works in ways that we don't expect and we can't plan for, right? But I think the great thing about it is understanding that there is a greater hand in that, right? So it's like, to your point, right? Like, oh, I did not think that we would be compatible. Like if you're talking to someone you're dating, right? But the reality is like, no, there's a purpose in that. And like, I think that that's, again, going back to the relationship with God. So I think another thing, and it's actually kind of something I want to hone in on with you, David, is talking about like standards, right?
Yeah.
In terms of, you know, deciding who we're dating. I think we kind of talked a little bit about that in the past episodes in terms of like having our family be part of the decision process of sort of filtering out who's the right person, who's the wrong person for us.
Yeah.
But how do you feel like your faith and your Christian walk have played a role in deciding who? Like I go into a little bit more depth. I know you said like they should have a relationship with God, but like how should their life reflect God? You know? Or is that important to you?
Most certainly.
Yeah.
It is so important. When I'm thinking about this question of like what are my standards, and almost like also when I look at my life in reflection, what do I hold myself to? I think about what does my every single daily life look like, and how am I uplifting my actions to honor Christ in all that I do. I know for certain, if I'm being completely honest with myself, I'm not going to meet that every single time.
Yeah.
But I think the authenticity, the vulnerability that you mentioned, that's what gets, I think, us, especially as Christians, to a very healthy place, and in a better sense of relationship with Christ, because we're able to actually acknowledge the truth of where we're at.
Yeah.
So I think a big thing is, you know, how often do these people go and do a Sabbath? How often do these people actually take time to find deep reflection and internal rest for their heart? Do they separate themselves from crowds that don't pull them closer to God and distract them, or that don't really honor Christ, the environments, the atmospheres? So I think about that. And, you know, are you, for one, most importantly, are you reading Scripture? Are you diving deep down inside of the Word and actually choosing to honor God in that way, where you want to actually learn more about Him? So you're going to open up your Bible and you're actually going to read. It's basically all of the things that we don't get to see externally.
Yeah.
It's what do you do on your own alone time in solitude.
I think that the place you're talking about is called like the secret place, right? Where it's like it's your own, and this is what we kind of hinted at before, is like your own personal relationship space with the Lord. And it sounds like that's something that you value, is obviously someone who has that for themselves, but someone that you can share in your own secret place with their secret place, if that makes sense.
So what are these like questions that you ask on your first date, David, or?
Yeah.
So what's your secret place?
So what's your personal Devo plan? Are you going through Bible in a year? What's the situation like with
First
that?
date? What's that?
I think
that's crazy.
I think a follow-up question I have for you, David, is just
Horrible.
like either in terms of like your personal experiences with like friendships, or your experiences with dating and relationships. Have there been seasons of time that you've been fostering a friendship that's taking you away from the Lord? And what was that experience
good question.
like for you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we're all human here.
No,
But yeah, no.
I mean, as much as you're willing to share,
Right.
I am more than willing to share on that too.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love for you to go first.
Okay. Unless you have something first, Anthony.
I mean, you go ahead.
Okay.
You go.
Yeah.
I'll go after you.
So I mean, I think that I was in like my longest relationship. I think that at the beginning of it, I definitely felt like my faith was fostered as an outcome of being with that person.
Yeah.
But I do think towards the end, just for several reasons, like my focus was more on the relationship than it was on the Lord. And I felt that I felt like as an outcome of that, there was just a lot more dissatisfaction. There was a lot more frustration. There was a lot more impatience, right? Because it wasn't about God, it was about me.
Did you know that those negative things that maybe happened were a result of? Or do you think it was a result of drawing farther away from God, or?
I think that in the moment, I think short answer is yes.
Okay.
Long answer is it's gray. I think the short answer being yes comes from the fact that when I look at it, when I compare where I am now, being a while after that relationship and where I was then, I'm so much more like satisfied and joyful at baseline as an outcome of like me fostering and being intentional with my relationship with God first.
Yeah.
Even over anything, even within the dating conversation, like where I'm dating now, and it's like that's still the priority, and like my baseline joy is higher. You know.
Well, yeah, because I think my follow-up question, which you know, for me, I always have a follow-up question with that.
I do too.
is like if you knew that relationship was in fact drawing you away from Christ, then why didn't you? Why would somebody else stay in a relationship that is pulling them away from Christ?
Ooh. Dang, that's a great question. That's a question that I've asked myself for a while.
Well, the challenge is then, is Christ really a priority in your life then?
Yeah.
Or is this other person really on top of that?
Well, I think that's exactly the root of what was what the issue was that I felt like this my partner was more of a priority than Christ. And because she was more of a priority, then I placed all of her needs above every other needs. Right? Like I placed her plans over my plans. I placed, her desires, her wishes, her faults, her joys all over mine, And as an outcome of that, because she is, finite and imperfect, then of course, like, she's gonna fail and I'm gonna fail.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. I actually have a little anecdote here. I think I'm reminded of the early days of my dating when obviously Christ was at the center. Like we met up to do Devos together, which is like awesome, right? Like that's like the green flags that you look for in a Christian relationship. It's like, oh yeah, we're going through a Bible, like a book in the Bible together. Yeah. But admittedly, those Bible dates ended up turning into just like reasons for us to meet up and eventually like not read the Bible and just do other things besides read the Bible. But it'd just be like, oh, like, can we do Bible study tonight? Yes. And then just like come over and I don't know, we'd be baking banana bread. Like, it's like, but then the plan was to be baking in the Word, you know?
Oh, that's interesting.
But I just think it's so interesting because as we progress in the relationship, sometimes we lose focus with what brought us into that relationship initially. And I think what it is that, like, in the beginning, I think we always, anything in life, I think we start so strong. Like any race, we're going off the start line, like sprinting. And then the farther away we are from the start line, we begin to kind of slowly lose our why if we're not reminded of it. That why being like Christ being at the center of that relationship. And I think the other point that I was thinking about as you were talking, Josh, there is like this idea of like personal responsibility, of like as the person in the relationship with a personal relationship with God, like it's my responsibility to also refocus our relationship back on Christ. I think in those earlier days of dating, I didn't honestly, admittedly, have the maturity to do that. Like I was so easily swayed by, oh, let's make banana bread, sure. Like let's just, we could do Bible study later, or like we can always do that at another time. But I think the more like stern, like Christian side of me would have been like, okay, like let's do what we set here to do first, and then we can make banana bread after, right? And enjoy that. So I don't know. I think I'm not sure what you guys think about that, but I think it's so interesting the way we kind of delineate like away from what our initial intent was sometimes.
Yeah, and I think that's okay that you can wrestle with that navigating. For example, if you made plans to read the Word and then you guys were like, oh, I want to make banana bread. I think it's fine that you can come to a conclusion that's like, oh, it might be different than what you had set, but I think what's important is that your intention and your motive is to focus your eyes back on the Lord. Like, it shouldn't be focused of a distraction pulled away from fully the Word. Because if you focused on banana bread and that was all the night had to offer, because then extra things might happen, it's like, then that isn't honoring the Lord. But I think if banana bread brings you together for one reason, and then your focus is, okay, the Word is for us to actually be here, and you recognize that. I think that's your relationship and faith in work. It shouldn't look so fixed as a priority where if God supersedes everything, you drop everything else, then you almost lose the vitality, the life, the authenticity of what faith is. Because if you weren't wrestling with that idea, then we'd just be robots. And why not everyone else be Christian robots? Like, to honor the Lord and just obey and surrender fully. It's like, that would be awesome, but then that wouldn't be faith. And that's where I think, the discussion of free will comes in, which could be another conversation. But
sure,
I think, though, when we are centering Christ in our relationship, whether that's with another person and especially with God, we have to look at the foundational pillars and the points that hold us together. And I think if that's going to be our loyalty to Christ, if that's going to be our surrender, our obedience to God, then that should also look like what we share in part with the other person. But Christ must come first. And I think that's a really big point that we need to amplify and really take to light.
Easier said than done.
Yeah,
100%.
Well, I think in concept, I completely agree. But I think Anthony seems to be focusing on the practicality of like, okay, on the day to day, what does that look like? And I think that we're imperfect people, and it's kind of like to your point, right? Like it's not really about the practice; it's about the grace, it's about faith. That's the most important thing, And so it's like if, in my mind, right, like if. We're just really rummaging with this anecdote, but like if baking the banana bread allows you to be in fellowship with your partner more in that moment, then so be it. Or maybe so it's like even last night, like there was a total. I was the person I'm dating. We had a total reroute of plans where it was like we were doing something and then something completely derouted us, and it was like, oh, and I was a little thrown off because like, oh, we had these plans to do this, but there was a lesson learned. There was a lesson learned to like be faithful to the way that God can plan your steps.
Yeah,
when maybe your vision for what the relationship can be might be different than how God designed it to be.
Yeah, that's a strong point. I think
Yeah.
we often have like an idealized vision for where our relationship is gonna go. We have, whether it's the idea of having check marks of in 1 year we're gonna know whether we're gonna be married or not. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, and then like in a year and 6 months we're gonna have a venue ready.
Yeah.
And then in 2 years, we're gonna be like set on our guest list. And then by year 3, like we're gonna have it done. Like the ring's gonna be on it. You know, it's like so often that we idealize like
Yeah.
the timing of things.
Idealize how it's supposed to go.
Yeah, but I wonder how much of that is putting ourselves in the driver's seat and pulling God and pushing him over to the passenger side and being like, I'm taking the wheel. You know?
Jesus, get out of the
Yeah.
seat.
And then like little do we know we're just headed into like potholes and taking the wrong detours and stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
no, Jesus take the wheel. Jesus take the wheel.
Yeah. I guess going back to sort of like the fundamentals of that,
Yeah.
I think that I think we're kind of talking about like we talked a little bit about thinking about dating and like what's God's role in that when it comes to thinking about dating. But I think it'd be really important as we're kind of getting into to really get into depth about why having faith in a relationship makes the relationship stronger.
Yeah, let's do it.
And so, you know, I don't know about you guys, but in my own experience of being in relationships, I've had a lot of conflict. Right? I think conflict's inevitable.
Nah,
right?
there's no conflict in relationships.
You're really
what
blind then.
What are you
Blind
talking
as that,
about,
left and
man?
right.
It's
Blind as
all
that, left and right.
it's all roses
All
and
roses and rainbows and rose-colored
No, I'm
glasses
kidding.
and everything.
Sarcastic.
No, no one could tell you're being sarcastic.
Yeah,
So you know, like when it comes to your experiences of even like friendships or relationships or dating where you've experienced conflict, how have there been experiences? Or what kind of experiences have you guys had where you've relied on your own self and emotions to get through the conflict, and other times when you relied on God to get through the conflict, and how did those differ? Did you get my question?
yeah.
Dang. You got that?
Yeah, I guess
Like, you
I'll take
process the
I'll
question?
take a spin at it.
Yeah, go for it.
I kind of
It's all
process
broken.
as I speak.
Oh shoot.
I think the relationships kind of there's two ways that they can kind of go. They either make or they break you. But I think the way that conflicts appear in relationships are kind of like they just happen. Like I was talking to another friend that was in a dating relationship, and he was telling, I'm not going to like disclose the name or anything, but he's talking to me about how like in their relationship they tend to brush problems aside. And so, yeah, like the conflicts still arise, but their kind of way of managing it is just pushing it under the rug. Or like, you know, like we'll talk about this later. Like we'll deal with this. Like it's too big of a conversation right now. Let's do this later. And this is like that kind of pushing is coming more from like one side than the other. And my friend was expressing to me like this frustration of, I just really want to talk about this, but you know, my partner does not. So what do I do about that? How do I hold that tension? And I think it begs the question of like, shouldn't your partner want to figure out these bigger than life questions with you? Like if the point of your relationship is directed towards marriage in a godly marriage way, in a godly marriage way, then shouldn't those your daily conversations be guiding you towards that place, right? If we're talking about this like analogy of a race and you're trying to reach that finish line, even though I think like relationships are much more about that journey than it is about the destination. But you know, I question that. I'm like, yeah, like conflicts is a must. Like you need to go through those treacherous waters, those valleys. And like, I think something I think about too is like when we'll probably get into in episode 20 of like the, you know, top relationship advices we've ever. Oh, sorry, am I spoiling it?
No, whoa.
Anyways, in general, talking about like relationship advice, like one thing I was told was that you need to go through all 4 seasons of life with somebody before you decide to like make that choice of spending the rest of your life with them. Because how do you know how they're gonna respond when they're angry, when they're frustrated, when they're disappointed? Like you gotta know what to do in those situations, because when that comes up in marriage and you haven't experienced that in dating, then how do you know how to respond? How do you know how they're gonna respond? You're not gonna be ready for that, you know?
I have a word for you.
Yeah, hit me, dude.
Being married doesn't fix the problems in dating.
Nope. Yeah,
And
I don't think it does
also,
either.
being married doesn't make your faith any stronger. I think those are like two misconceptions that like, oh, once I'm married to this person, my faith will be stronger. Once we're married, then all those problems that we're dealing with or dating, they're not going to matter anymore. They're going to be resolved. Like that's not the truth coming from experience. Like you have to address them now. Like don't shove it down the road with an expectation of future me will be able to handle that. Because future you is actually just a later version of your current you.
That's right.
So it's a delayed
Yeah, it's
problem
more of a
rather than
delayed problem than I'm not gonna have to deal with it. No, you're gonna have to deal with it. It'll come back.
It'll come back.
I think oftentimes though, like we just brush it aside and hope that it just like fizzles away.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah,
Isn't that
like
kind
a
of
little
like
burn, like it'll just ember
like
off.
if we don't have to deal with it, and if it's such a small problem, like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter. You know, like they just keep picking their nose in public. Like it's a small thing. It doesn't bother me. I swear it's fine. You know. It's
And then
like,
it just
with their
bites you
mouth
back.
open.
You know?
they're like smacking their tongue or their lips when they're talking. They're eating with their mouth open. Like it's cool. Like I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
You know.
Like I love you the way you are. You know.
You guys are
Not-
really
not a re-
exposing the people.
Not a relationship deal breaker at all.
No.
Like we're
That
cool with
sounds like
that.
it's a relationship deal breaker for you guys.
Oh, it is.
No, just throwing things out there.
Just some examples.
Seeing what hits the fan.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to add on to conflict, though. I think, like, what we're addressing here, conflict is very important, and it's a necessity. Like, we need conflict in order to navigate through the ups and downs of life, and then you get to recognize and understand where the other person in relationship with God is. Because I think how they react and how they respond helps you understand, okay, where are they at with Christ? And maybe not completely and fully, but I think that if they can handle emotionally well something that is so difficult and you're in the absolute lowest time of your life, for example, you have not that much money, or you know, you don't have a home, or you don't have a car, and it's like these things bring you down, but who's lifting you up and who's acknowledging that during your time? And those people, I think, are worth considering to have a relationship with. And it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship, but when we look at dating, I think it's something to consider because they're willing to walk through the thick and thin with you. And that's what a biblical marriage should look like, walking through the thick and thin.
An extension of that, I would say, is the willingness to walk through the thick and thin, but also having the grace to know that we can't pull you through your situation. You can't pull each other through. And I think that's something that is the big asterisk I have on that phrase. It's like, yes, willing to walk through thin and thin, but you'd be surprised what you're willing to walk through thin and thin for somebody else, especially when it comes to at the sacrifice of yourself. And so I think it's the grace to know that A, your partner cannot pull you and drag you through your rough situations, and B, you can't do that for your partner.
Right.
Like not completely and fully in the ways that maybe God can fill the gaps in. You know what I mean?
I think one of the lessons I learned in conflict, as I'm sure we're moving into another topic soon, is like the fact that conflicts are a good thing. I'll say that again. Conflicts are a good thing. Like I think conflicts are what build the relationship and give it depth and give it substance. Like if you're not experiencing any kind of, like, I'm not saying you and your significant other are having, you know, arguments or like talking out, like, you know, over each other. I'm saying like you're just having adult to adult conversations about important topics, right? Like if you're not having any of those kind of things in your relationship, then I think that begs a question about, well, how deep is your relationship then? Because if you're not actually experiencing any kind of conflict, then
Like, are you? Yeah. How depthful is it?
yeah, like how like what kind of things are you guys talking about? Is it more just surface level, like how's your day?
Yeah.
I think that gives you like an interesting perspective into like where your relationship is, because I think a lot of people think about like where their relationship is headed.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I think this is actually a really interesting point to segue back into God, right? Is like, how does God handle our conflict, right? Like when we're having an issue with something. So like for me, it's like I'm at the end of my nursing program, and I know I'm at the junction of what's next for me, you know, and there's stress and there's anxiety with that, but God receives me with grace. He waits for me. He listens to me. He waits for the right moment to open the right door.
So actually, I have a question for you and for David, both of you guys, whoever wants to take it.
Sure.
Don't all speak at once, but so you mentioned this like pacing in relationships, which I think is such an interesting conversation that like I love to explore. Like there's this idea of like going too fast in relationships and then like going really slow or like what you think might be slow. And I am curious to ponder with you guys, like, how do you know whether God is blessing or telling you to like the pace of the relationship that you should be going? Like, are you moving towards, are you supposed to be taking the next step? Like, how do you know when God is saying like, okay, this is the right thing to do? Whether it's a situationship, whether it's you moving into now you guys are talking, but then you guys are considering like, okay, like, are we putting a title on this? You know, when do we start telling our friends and family? Like, when do I start bring her to the folks? You know, like where in that timeline do you kind of operate, and how does God play a role in the speed of that timeline?
That's such a wonderful question. Josh, would you like to tackle this?
Man, I kind of wish I talked about this when I was dating. This is great. This is great stuff. I just want to say this is great stuff.
No, I for me, it's like it all comes back to God. Right? When it comes to my relationship with God, it didn't feel rushed. It felt like there was grace to take it really slow. And there was also moments where I was like, man, God, my faith is growing really quickly. Like, oh, I just had this one singular experience and boom, like, I love you, God, and like, I'm all for you and I surrender everything, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, I think that the same thing goes for the pacing with dating, especially within trusting with the Lord about what the pacing should be, is like, with the right person, the doors will open. And you'll find yourself, as I have found myself, being like, is this, like, questioning, it's good, but it's like, is this going too fast?
Yeah.
But then I think there's also there's a part of that conversation and recognizing that, and at least for me, being someone who's sort of like a self-doubt, insecurity person, as I've established quite a lot of times, is that I sometimes doubt as a means of like maybe attempting to not be prideful. I doubt the blessings that are in my life. Like, I'm like, oh, God, I don't deserve this. Or, God, this person's too good. Like, I don't deserve this. Or, this is going too well. Like, I think that's a common phrase that I use for myself.
Too good to be true.
This is going too well. Like, this is, I don't believe that this should be happening to me.
Yeah.
So I think that if there are moments like that are happening and there's still that full dependence on God, like, then lean into the open doors and the good blessings that are going under your life. I also think there's something else to be said about, and I think this is sort of a conversation that we should definitely have in this episode, is about boundaries.
Oh, snap. Right? The
boundaries, what are those?
But there's something to be said about if there's a boundary crossed that you've established, whether that's physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, right? Then there's something to be said about pumping the brakes.
Yes.
And leaning into pumping the brakes.
That's a great transition.
You know?
Well,
yeah. Go ahead.
Are you?
No.
I want to hear David's thought on it.
Yeah.
I think to comment on that real quick and then bring it over to David. Like, I feel like there's this to play devil's advocate. Like, when you are moving with purpose in a relationship, like, there's also propensity for you to be moving with speed, in life, right? Like, if you're driven towards marriage, if the conversations that you have are so specific and so intentional about driving you to develop this I guess answer or like to determine whether or not this person is right for you, and if you're intentionally trying to determine that, like, with every day and just making the most of your time, then I don't think it takes that long for you to really figure out, like, if that person's the right for you. David and I were having a conversation just a few weeks ago in the car about how long does it take for you to know whether someone is, like, someone you should pursue or not, like, in the dating phase. Like, do you hop out after 4 weeks, or is it like 6 months? But then wait, 6 months is kind of long. Like, are you sure, like, that's the right amount of time? But, like, you want to give it a chance, you know? Like, how much effort should you put into that? Because obviously time is our most valuable resource, right? So anyways, with those kind of thoughts looming in the air, David, what is your answer to the last question?
It's definitely not an answer, but
Give me what you got, man.
My response
You're not getting graded.
is a
You are
culmination
getting graded.
of what you said, Josh, and what you said, Anthony, about the timing. It can look roughly around like 4 weeks to maybe 6 months. I mean,
okay.
hypothetically,
Putting the
possibly.
timeline up?
You give me
But-
hard numbers here.
Yeah, hard number.
Then,
Wow.
if we look at what Josh was saying, you look at the grace that's been given with God opening doors. And I think a culmination of what you guys are saying is the more that you lean in your heart and your relationship with Christ and you focus solely on Him, the more you can see the opportunities that He's presenting towards you. And I think that's in alignment, though, with everything that Scripture has, everything that Christ is in the character of God. And that's not an easy thing to just grab and just pick up and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to walk my everyday life in a dating relationship and be like, I know this is what God wants for me. But what I'm saying is the more that you really in tune your life with God, the more opportunities that you walk in and you're like, this is the presence of the Lord. You can recognize them because they do not pull you away from God. And at the times that you do not recognize that they're pulling you away, I think there's something that God always allows in that circumstance, that situation, to be like that one, almost like that trigger that gets you to, if you're walking away, he'll kind of like, he'll shock you. He'll give you a nice little ignite, because I think sometimes when that desire of our heart comes and it's like we really are filled with all of these wondrous emotions and we're like, oh yeah, I have a great relationship with God, we can get mixed up in that.
Yeah.
And we don't want that chaos.
We actually are blinded by that.
Or blinded, and
Yeah.
that's a great word, because that's what it is. Like we can see, but we cannot see clearly.
Ooh, like it's like a foggy shower.
A foggy
Shower curtain.
with hot water,
Yeah, it's
and
like, you're like, I can kind of see,
and it's almost like you're making your own image. You're drawing your own path in the mirror, because
Yeah,
after you have all that,
Yeah.
is that precipitation, condensation, whatever that
Yeah.
is. Anyways, on the glass mirror, and that's what I have to say to
Yeah.
that. So that's my response to the timeline one. But now we're transitioning over into.
Well, did you have a thought, Josh, on
I
that?
have
yes.
like so many more thoughts.
I think I.
But go ahead first.
I question. My question for you, then, David, is like, do you walk through every door that God opens for you?
Well, I think that's what he's advising against, is like to not let, this is God. Like just saying that everything's God is like sort of an excuse to walk through every door and try to be with every single opportunity.
Right.
I think he's more, and this is kind of what I was gonna get at, is like training your eye.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting idea too, because like obviously, just because a door's open, it doesn't mean you should walk through it.
Yeah.
But I think
Ooh,
Satan,
oh, man.
I think Satan also opens some doors too,
Whoa.
and
Yeah.
sometimes that can be deceiving. Whether to discern between, is that a door that God just opened, or is that a door that Satan opened for me
Yeah.
to walk through?
Dang.
And at the end of the day, I think because we're given free will, like you mentioned earlier, it's like we have the choice about what doors we want to walk through.
Yeah.
And the results waiting for us on the other side of that frame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then in doing so, we have that choice of whether or not we want to make this A decision or this B decision. Like, is it red pill or blue pill, right?
Yeah.
Not like
purple pill.
Yeah, but like, you have choices in life.
Right.
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 Oh man. Okay, so.
So anyways, boundaries.
No, but well, before
in our
we go
last
into
10,
boundaries, yeah,
15
before we get into
minutes here.
boundaries, well, I have like 3 thoughts.
Go.
And this
Okay,
is sort
yeah.
of like as we're kind of culminating into boundaries, right?
Yeah.
I was reading a passage. It was, I believe, Matthew 6, talking about the eye and how if the eye is looking for the Lord, the body will be filled with light. But if it looks for darkness, the body will be filled with darkness. And I think that's a passage that although it's speaking more in general about distinguishing between the enemy's doings, the enemy's doors and God's doors. I think that's very much a practical way to look at dating, is like looking at people as God looks at them, and looking at their qualities as God looks at their qualities.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes, and this kind of goes into my point when we kind of lead into boundaries, is I think one practical tip, one very, very practical tip, and I could speak for the friendships that we have, is surround yourself with godly relationships.
Yes.
Not saying in terms of godly relationships like your godly relationships, but people who are together who are in a godly relationships, right? Like I could speak for some people I could just think off the top of my head literally recently who are in godly relationships, because you begin to sort of get a vision, you begin to sharpen your eye to what does a godly relationship look like, you know, in practicality. And in turn, you begin to sort of develop in yourself an image for what a godly relationship would look like and maybe what that should look like for you.
Yeah.
And that leads really well into boundaries. I think the people that I've surrounded myself with who are in godly relationships have very specific boundaries, whether that's like abstinence before marriage, whether that's bringing everything to the Lord first before bringing it to each other. Like there's particular practices that they carry that are defining characteristics of God in their relationship. You know?
Do you think your relationship changes with God as soon as you go into a significant other relationship? Do you think it's transformed in any way? Do you think it's deepened? Do you think it's at all different?
I think that, at least the way in my mind, and I want to point this to you too, is my relationship with God looks like a spider web, right? So it's like I have my relationship with God as an individual, but I also have my relationship with God with Anthony, right? So it's like we web together and then we go into our relationship with God. Like that's how I sort of view like my relationships. So it's like when it comes to my relationship with God as an outcome of dating, like and I think that this is really important because I have my relationship with God still as an individual, but then I also have this newfound web of my relationship with God that is webbed and intertwined with another person's relationship with God.
I hear you.
And they also have their own individual relationship with God. You know what I mean? And so it's like I feel like it forms
That's good, man.
You're putting all the you're like drawing it up over here.
I'm gonna draw it out on my
I'm just miming you.
But you know what I mean? Like I think that that's something that's so important is like my relationship with God individually is still sustained, but there's also this new sort of vine that and web that develops with another person, but is also connected with God.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that I agree with that. I think it's, you know, I find that every new relationship, romantic or not, that I create or that I foster with somebody gives me a new perspective into the way that God loves his people. Because I think the way that God loves you, David, is different than the way God loves me or that loves Josh. I think the way that we feel loved and that the way that God chooses to love us is so different from person to person.
Sure.
And I think it's so cool to see the way that you get an upfront, when you're in a relationship, you kind of get this upfront row seat of the way that God is loving that person. And I think oftentimes it's so beautiful in the way that you get to see that unravel. In a way of like unraveling in a sense of mystery.
Yes.
Of like, there's so much mystery in this person, but then day by day you're kind of piecing and peeling back the layers of that onion until you really understand that person and how they're loved, and even loved in their inadequacies, but then loved in the fullness of all their gifts and beauty.
Dude, I love everything that you're saying. It's like, oh my gosh, I just imagine like sauteed onions too. But it's because, hear me out. It's because like after you've peeled them back and you've really like got to chop through, like you've gone through the challenges with them. That's like the chopping of the knife and the onion.
And you cry.
Then you cry and you go through those seasons together. And it's like then you're cooking with them, and then you get to the saute. Yeah, because you get to see the beauty and how they taste, you know, and then given how intimate and how honorable you are to the Lord at a certain time, you get to have that same sense of intimacy and intensity that you've gotten with the Lord all your life, but now even greater because God has enabled you with another human being.
That's good.
You know, and whether that be sexual intercourse, whether that be emotional health, whether that be the sense of vulnerability on a spiritual level, it can look different for every person. But I think like, that's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think when you're cooking with onions, you got onions. When you're cooking with peppers, you get peppers.
Yeah.
And when you're cooking with, you know, whatever. Like, but when you're cooking with onions and peppers, you get fajitas.
I like that.
It's like this like combination of like 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2 in the relationship, but 1 + 1 can multiply. Right, I think that's the beauty of relationships. Is that,
That's amazing.
yeah, right.
All my math nerds are like, that's not possible.
Yeah, it's not possible.
Yeah.
But I think what you see is that like when you're in the right relationship, that person
Yeah.
can multiply your gifts.
Right.
It's not just like they're adding to your life and you're adding to their life. It's like when you guys come together, you make this like power couple.
Yeah.
Like you guys both make each other better, and as a result of that, you guys, become this thing, this one, right?
Right, right.
Like biblically, that is like so much greater than you guys were when you guys were separate.
Wow.
Beautifully said.
Well, just
Ye-
sort of on
like
the
last time.
conversation of just sort of closing off this conversation about our relationship with God, and yeah, I think that the relationships that I have seen, to your guys' point, that are God-centered, God-motivated and driven, right? God-fearing, if you would. I think that one of the greatest things I've heard from one of my mentors who was sort of like the model for me of like what a godly relationship looks like. He said that what a gift it is for these people to do God's will individually, but even more so, what greater gifts they can do together. Like what greater works, a force for the kingdom they're going to be, even more so together. And like I think that that's the greatest encouragement and the greatest goal that we can have for our relationships is to recognize the calling that your potential partner has and the calling that you have, and let each other elevate towards the greater calling to serve the kingdom. And I think that in my limited experience of dating and being in relationships, I've found that in those moments when each of the individual callings are sort of working at their best, there's no greater like joy. I think there's no greater happiness, I think, than to be like, we are elevating each other's callings. And even if that doesn't look like we're physically together.
Yeah.
Like there's doing two entirely separate things. So just kind of as a sort of closing reflections, I think we've talked a lot about dating so far, like singleness, the value of the self, the value of our friends, and now we've talked about the integration of God into the conversation. But I think one main theme that we've touched on is dating is sort of like a race. Like you're running this race, and then you have someone running this marathon with you. But the importance that we've learned, and I think in this episode is focusing on the goal.
Yeah.
What really matters, right?
It's interesting that you used the word race. I think it's like
Walk.
yeah. Well, I just wonder if some people do see it that way.
Yeah.
Of like, because a race insinuates like there's a finish line and you're trying to get there as fast as you can. When I think in reality, relationships, maybe I beg to differ, but like it's like a pace, like we talked about pacing, and like it's this thing that we kind of go through, and it's this like journey of it, rather than just like arriving at the destination,
Yeah. I think to add on to that, what I'm pulling from Josh is like the idea and concept of going through a journey together with another person with a goal that, as a race demands you to pass the finish line. It's now not about the time, but how you guys get through it together and you guys finish the line together. Because, for example, if I was doing like the Moab, 200 mile or whatever, if I'm doing some of the biggest,
whatever,
these are
200 mile, whatever,
or 150 miles, or
probably dropping that.
But it's not that like you're gonna casually do it, but
you might.
You're not. You're not.
You might casually do it.
You're not, because I am.
Oh, you are? No.
Okay, but bringing it back.
But the idea is, like, if I were going through something as difficult as that, even though as much as I push myself now, if there's another person dating-wise, romantic in the relationship now, you're going to also walk now aside with them in that journey. So that might slow you down, sure, but you're crossing the finish line together, and that's what essentially is most important.
That's beautiful. I got a word on that too. I think this is why, like, any relationship that you go to, or any kind of situation that you go through in life with any other person that doesn't work out is not wasted. Because I think I see life as a way of, like, maybe it's the analogy that you put it of going through this hike and this treacherous up and down mountains, right? Yeah. And I think in that season of life where that person was in your life, maybe you guys were in a relationship of 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, but in that time frame, that person helped you get over those hills that you did. And so if it weren't for that person, then you don't have that company of going through those hills with anyone.
Yeah.
And so it's not like you look, like for me, I look back and I'm like, yeah, I dated that person for whatever, like 2 years. I dated that person for like whatever, 6 months, 1 year, whatever it was. But in those 2 years, in those 6 months, those 1 year, like that person helped me get through that point in my life. And so that wasn't wasted time, you know. That person helped me get through and navigate those kind of valleys, those hills, those peaks.
That's right.
And we experienced some of those together. But God just didn't think that they were meant to be there to experience the peaks and the valleys that were to come.
I think that there's this word of advice that I got. I've learned and unfortunately have had to work on rushing. And maybe that's why I used the analogy of a race, because I feel like I'm always rushing everything. I'm rushing into everything, and I'm rushing out of anything and into everything.
Okay.
But I think that one of the greatest pieces of advice I've gotten is, it was actually a question. They said, what if, and I think this could be replaced with many, many things. What if God is using this season to prepare you for the next one? And I think that could be said for relationships. What if God was actually using, and coming out of a relationship of 8 years, like what if God was using that relationship to prepare you for the next one is crazy to like think about.
Yeah.
You know, and but seeing now, like the lessons I've learned, the seasons that we navigated together, like I think that none of it was wasted at all. None of it was wasted. Not a single experience. The really great ones and the really awful ones. Like I think all of it had a purpose and a meaning. And so I think just if you're listening to this and you find yourself in a relationship, maybe out of a relationship, and just thinking back on your past experiences of maybe situationships or relationships, and you're thinking, man, what a waste of time that was. Like, don't discount the fact that God used those experiences for your future relationships, for your current season of life. And I think if you have that perspective on it, there's really no experience that's ever wasted. God cleans the plate. He doesn't leave a single grain of rice on it. And that's how he treats your life. Everything is valuable. If we can align ourselves with that mentality, I think that really makes no experience not important.
That's really good. I guess one last question for both of you guys. I'm going to start with you, David, is like we always end off with, what's one practical word of advice that you would leave someone who is maybe having questions about their current relationship as it relates to maybe their spiritual life or faith or boundaries or any of the topics that we talked about in today's episode? And I'll head over to you, Josh, after.
I want to hear you first.
No,
Okay.
Actually, no,
cat and mouse. All right. Well, to conclude, with all three of our thoughts, I'll go first. I would say that that one word of advice would be, if you have to consistently question your relationship with God, with the person that you're in partnership with or you're walking alongside life with, then I think you should strongly consider if they are actually the person for you. And what I mean by strongly consider is maybe take a step back, take a break, maybe say no to this relationship, because I think a person that allows you to question your relationship with God consistently is either someone for certainly pulling you away from God or challenging you in the best way. So really taking a really big step back to recognize that, I would say, is probably just really good advice.
Fine. Yeah, thanks, Dave, for sharing. That's good. I think something that we didn't talk as much about is boundaries. So I think for me, I think realizing and seeing boundaries as not as not punishments, but as a way to protect yourself is a valuable perspective to take, because oftentimes we feel like boundaries are meant to, they're all these no's that we can't do, when in reality I think they protect the purity and the sanctity of a beautiful relationship. That'd be it.
Wow. I love the word protect, because I think that that's exactly what boundaries do. They actually, and you'd be surprised, I think that boundaries actually allow the parts of the relationship that really matter to flourish more. Like gardens, I think, grow best in like controlled spaces, you know? I think my word of advice, I've already said this twice, is like surround yourself with godly relationships. Because if you do, you'll get a greater vision and you'll see the beauty of what a godly relationship can look like. I've done that for myself. I've been fortunate enough to be surrounded by a lot of good people, and that's been modeled into my own, current relationship. And I think it's just been a great gift. I'm gonna pray for us.
Cool.
Gracious God, we just come before you this morning just with a posture of gratitude that we can just continue to talk about this messy and wonderful thing called dating. I just thank you for Anthony and David, just for all the insights and experience and wisdom and the laughter that they bring to my life and just to our listeners, Lord. We know that you're the most important thing in this life, and we just pray that going into this next conversations about dating and about our last episode that we'll continue to not spoil, that we just continue to be focused on what really matters, and that's you, just as we continue to talk about this, Lord.
Yes, Lord.
Thank you for this time, and thank you for this episode, and pray for the rest of a good day for everyone listening and for ourselves too. Amen.
Amen. All right, that's going to be episode 18. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend if you feel like they would love and enjoy this as well. We appreciate you guys as well. As always, we guys will see you guys in the next one.